How's everybody doing tonight? You might recall that we started the Wusaic Stallion GT puzzle yesterday, but there were no instructions in the box. So I tried to find instructions today. I didn't. Whenever we find instructions, that's when we're going to continue the puzzle. Could you hold on 1 second? What are you doing? All right, that was me testing the volume. Okay, the volume's working. So what we've instead got today is this American history in verse. I don't know if there are multiple copies of this. I've seen other covers. I don't know if that means that there's like more than one book or just more than one cover. American history in verse. I'm just looking that up. Is that like a series? American History in Verse by Burton Stevenson. Look at this. That's not even who this is by. This is by John Van Duyn Southworth. And this is Burton Stevenson. Tells the story of American terms of poetry to highlight the principles upon which the Republic was founded and the ideals that have grown up about it. So that doesn't match what we're looking at. This matches what we're looking at, but even this, I've seen other covers. Like, what's this? Old World History in Verse. Okay, that's a different cover, but it says Old World, not American History. So maybe this is the only cover for this exact book. But maybe there's other books, like, what is this? Okay, that's totally different, but there's definitely other books or definitely other covers. So like, what is this? Is that the back cover? I'm just gonna flip the book over and see it. Oh, yep, that's the back cover. All right, so maybe we have the one and only version of this. I mean, obviously there are other books with the same title. Anyway, I got it for $1 at a garage sale. I'm gonna flip through it on the stream, and then I'm gonna donate it to the Salvation Army. So it's like the one and only chance to see what's in here. And I wouldn't even be doing it if I had the instructions to Stallion GT. By the way, that Wusaic, it sometimes says Unidragon. Like, it didn't say Unidragon on the box, but on the where I bought it, it was called Unidragon. So I don't know what that means. Okay, American History and Verse. It has that. The book has that smell. Like, I don't want this in my room. It has that like old paper smell, you know, like library book smell. It's not a good smell. To my friend, Majorie Massey Shuck. I don't know. That's what it says. Dedication to my friend Marjorie Massey Shuck. Okay, so dedicated. All right. The Indian, Christopher Columbus, Pilgrims and Indians, John Harvard. That's the guy who like got Harvard donated after him by donating some books. Like a few books. You know, so the college existed, apparently, Harvard, before the books were donated. So could you imagine? I mean, they named it after a guy who donated books, so I can only imagine what they were doing before they got the books. You know, they were so thankful they renamed the college. Torquemada and the Cotton Market. Is that going to be like Tulips in Holland? We'll see. Mother Goose, Isaac Jogues, and Jean Lalonde. Sound like maybe explorers. William Dawes and Samuel Prescott. Prescott, that's not one of those Bushes, is it? No, that was a first name. George Washington. Betsy Ross. Uh-oh. Don't nobody tell the SLPC or whatever, the Southern Poverty Law Center. There's a chapter on Betsy Ross. I believe they consider that like a symbol of hate for some reason. The Signers, Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine. Oh, there's another one. Apparently the Southern Poverty Law Center just hates American history. Mad Anthony Wayne. I'm sorry, I might be talking about something you never heard of. There's this place called SPLC, and they just hate everything. They consider everything to be a symbol of hate. There's like nothing you could. It would be very rare if you were to pick something and they didn't consider it a symbol of hate. Daniel Boone, Alexander Hamilton, Mystery Lady, John Paul Jones, Molly Pitcher, Benedict Arnold, The Rivals, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. Benedict Arnold is something people used to say when I was a kid, and it meant you were like a traitor if someone called you a Benedict Arnold. Benjamin Franklin invented the spectacles, electricity, poured some oil on waves and they stopped being waves. I don't know. I got to do a whole bit. I should do a YouTube short on Benjamin Franklin because there's a whole list of amazing things he did. He's like on the $100 bill, despite not being president. He's like a Hall of Fame scientist, despite not, ever having any degrees in science. He's there's like all these things that he did without ever doing them. There's all these top tier things that he did without having any of the qualifications to do them. And it's not just like 3 or 4 things. It's like he just lived his life. He didn't let anyone stop him. He's like a well-known inventor without any patents. He did the Franklin stove and the bifocals and a bunch of other stuff. Eli Whitney, the cotton gin. It's actually the company that I work for is named after a descendant of Eli Whitney. Whiskey Rebellion, John James Audubon. Is that the Audubon Society? Aaron Burr, Andrew Jackson. Wow, it's like who's who in this thing. Francis Scott Key, that's the original Star Spangled Banner. Henry Clay, Donald McKay, Stephen Foster, Stephen Douglas, Ulysses S. Grant and Robert Lee, David Farragut, Abraham Lincoln, Street Incident. I feel like when you're done with this book, you're ready to take that like citizenship test. You know that test that if you immigrate to America, immigrate, am I saying that word right? You like want to become a naturalized U.S. citizen. Wait, does naturalized mean you took a test or you were born here? Anyway, you want to become a U.S. citizen and you weren't previously one, you have to take some test. And I feel like after you read this book, you're probably ready to take that test. The Gunslingers, Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Ford, George Washington Carver, died penniless and insane, still trying to make a phonograph record. George Washington Carver died penniless and insane, still trying to make a phonograph record out of a peanut. I didn't deliver the line as good as Eddie Murphy, and that's not true, what I just said. That's just like some old Saturday Night Live bit. But I thought it, I can hear it in my head, but when I tried to say it out loud, it didn't work. George Washington Carver died penniless and insane, still trying to make a phonograph record out of a peanut. Yeah, Eddie Murphy's talented. I can't do it. I should practice. Because I didn't realize until I attempted to say that out loud that it's difficult. Apparently I'm not a good speaker, but I'll work on it. The Wright brothers. Oh yeah, the guys who got credit for inventing the plane, despite being like the 500th recorded invention of the plane, but they got the credit. I guess their model is the one that went forward. Carrie Nation, the Suffragettes, Phineas T. Barnum. Is that P.T. Barnum? It must be, right? Man of Contradictions. Vermont does not answer. What is that about? I got to read that. Lee DeForest, Grandma Moses. Was that the painter? Or who is Grandma Moses? What's the copyright on this book? First edition? Is this a first? If it says first edition, it's a first edition. 1976. Yeah, that makes sense. I probably heard of all this stuff because it came out when I was 3 years old, and probably my teachers were teaching me this stuff. Maybe a teacher picked up this exact book when I was a kid. I don't know. Library of Congress catalog card number 76590. So if this is a first edition, I guess first edition is not the same as a first printing. I'm just thinking if it's a first edition, how does it also already have a Library of Congress catalog card number? Because don't you need to physically have the book to get that number? And if this is the first printing, it can't have that. It can't be in the library yet, thus it can't have a number. So whether it's first edition or first printing, neither one of them makes sense. I mean, if it hasn't been printed, obviously it can't have the number yet, especially not in 1976. But if it hasn't been, even if it has been printed, how can it still be the first edition if it's the number is on it? Like, something doesn't add up, in my mind anyway. Maybe to you it makes total sense, but maybe you can get the number before you print it. Maybe you just go to the Library of Congress and say, oh, I'm doing a book and I need a number. Anyway, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Parker Buck, neighborhood hero, Ralph Bunch, pioneer. Why all of a sudden are we getting like one-word bios of the characters? Charles Augustus Lindbergh. The Lindbergh baby was pretty famous. There was a whole thing to that. To a UN soldier dead in a distant land. Okay. When did the UN come to be? Presidential jinx. Okay. Is that going to be the 20-year thing? The unknown future and the illustrations. There's not that many, so there's less illustrations than chapters. So some people are just going to get like a paragraph. So, wow, yeah. Page 14, page 24. So there's like a 9-page gap between these two drawings. Indian, Mother Goose, British are coming, George Washington, Betsy Ross, Patrick Henry, Alexander Hamilton, John Paul Jones, Molly Pitcher, Benjamin Franklin, John James Audubon, Francis Scott Key, Abraham Lincoln. Henry Ford, the Wright brothers, Phineas T. Barnum, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Ralph Bunch, presidential jinx, unknown future. So they got a picture of the presidential jinx. I don't know how you have a picture of something like recurring every 20 years. Americana collection. What is this? Are these names of the poems? I saw it in verse. I thought indicated something about poetry. Excuse me. Preface. Why in the world would one undertake to express the facts and personalities of history in verse? Why indeed? One truthful answer must surely be, why just for the hell of it? I'm going to stop with that answer before I go on, because that's the answer I give all the time. People are, like anything I do, people are like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? I mean, there's so many things I've done that I have no right to be doing, and I just did them because I'm like, well, I can't wait for someone to like assign me this thing, because that's never going to happen. Like even this streaming thing that I'm doing right now, I was going to make a song. I don't know how I don't know exactly how I ended up streaming, but I know that what I was trying to do was to make a song. Like, I don't have any instruments. I don't have anything written, but I just was like downloading like programs for creating music, and I was just going to try to make like a 3-minute song, and I don't know, then I would probably make a YouTube video for it next, and maybe I'll still do that. And somehow I ended up streaming. I think when I was like a week into making a song, I got added to that review program. And then once I was in the review, then I started, I needed to do something with the products I was reviewing, so I started streaming them. And now, in addition to the review products, obviously I'm also now going through these books and whatever else I picked up at garage sales. Okay, so here's our first illustration. So, Would you say this is pencil only? I don't really see any pencil marks. It's just the color of pencil. I think we have to get in close there to see if we see any pencil. Yeah, I think we do. I think this is just pencil. I think that's what we're dealing with here. Obviously, it's not pencil when you talk about like comic book line art. It's more than that, because that would have a different person shading and a different person coloring. This is a full drawing of just pencil. So I'm not going to analyze every picture, and I'm not going to analyze every poem. I'm not going to analyze this picture because there's a lot going on. But it's here on camera, so we always can go back and comment later. But I will read this poem because it looks pretty short. So it's probably going to be offensive too. I believe that Indian is not an offensive term, but I'm sure there'll be something offensive in the poem. Let's see what it says. Lo, the poor Indian, stalking the woods, building no cities, making no goods, hunting and fishing, fighting a bit, disdaining all labor, preferring to sit, bestirring himself for hunting and wars, letting his squaw perform all the chores. How could the white man in ignorant bliss think that he could better a system like this? All right, so I'm not going to break that down. I read it, but it's a poem, and I think it would take the whole episode to break that down. I will say this, which is what I was thinking when I was reading it. I got triggered by the first line, lo, the poor Indian, because Indians aren't poor. Land-wise, they own a good portion of the United States. Economically, they don't owe taxes, and they can do things on their land. I mean, simple things are like selling, cigarettes and fireworks. Obviously, there's more complex things like running casinos and other things that wouldn't be legal off the reservation. But again, it's that first line that triggered me, the poor Indian, because the Indians aren't poor. And in fact, I'm reminded of a current event in the news. You might hear a lot of people lately down talking the FBI. It's like, they're like a target right now. I mean, there was a Durham report that said a lot of bad things about the FBI. You hear a lot of bad things from both political sides about the FBI. I myself have sent, links to the FBI of scammers who are using interstate commerce. They're using phones and they're using mail and they're doing obvious fraud. And I'm thinking why isn't the FBI stopping this? Meanwhile, they're telling underemployed people in Michigan, trying to convince them to kidnap the governor so they could, so they're like firefighters who start a fire and then put it out. Well, I shouldn't say that. The bad firefighter who starts a fire and then puts it out. That's who people think of the FBI as now, but they weren't really, if you read about their founding, which I have on my YouTube page. I didn't click on it yet. They put it on my homepage right now. It was the true story behind something like the Killers of the Flower Moon or something like that. Let me go back to my YouTube page and see the name, because I know I was planning on clicking on it. Okay, the Osage Murders, the true story behind the Killers of the Flower Moon. So somehow I came across that book. I don't know why, but somehow I came across that book and I read it. And maybe I don't remember everything about the book, but it was something like the Indians had a lot of money because there was oil on their land, and it got partitioned that every Indian on the land would get a percentage of the money from the oil. But then there were these conservatorships. So that's when Britney Spears relatives think she's crazy, and they put her conservatorship on her money, which means she earned the money, but she needs permission from the conservatorship to buy a car or take a vacation or whatever she wants to use her money for. So apparently that was a big thing in the FBI, was these conservatorships of the Native Americans, American Indians, First Nation. I don't know what's the current politically correct term. I apologize. But basically, FBI was involved in a lot of shit, according to this book. Whether it was mysterious deaths of these people who had the conservatorships, or it was just simply using their conservatorships to buy things from them, like used cars and land, and overcharging them and directing where their money gets spent. And so it's like you're in charge of a conservatorship, and you're basically just using it to rob the person. Like, that's horrible. But apparently that happened, and it's not surprising. I mean, you put a conservatorship, and of course there's going to be like illegal stuff. But then just to pile on a little bit, I mean, the most associated person with the FBI is J. Edgar Hoover. I think he was like the first director, and he was there for several decades. And any movies and anything I read about J. Edgar Hoover, he was known for blackmailing people, like collecting information on them, using that information to control them. And what we've heard from stories lately, like Jeffrey Epstein type of stories, is like at some point that operation went beyond waiting for someone to mess up and using it to control them, and it was like forcing them to mess up before they got in the position where controlling that position and power was valuable. I'm going way off on a tangent with that, and in fact, that's gone beyond what I can justify, either time-wise or content-wise, considering we're already 20 minutes in. So I'm just going to turn the page and see what's next. All right, so next is a bunch of poems without any art. So there you go. If you want an idea, there's like a Christopher Columbus poem. Did I even... what camera is active? Okay. All right, the Christopher Columbus poem. You can probably see it there. I'm not going to read it. Okay, fine. I like the visual of that, but it's too long. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to read one section. You were sure, Columbus, certain all along. You had reached for Asia. You were wrong. So, I don't know if were these poems all written by this guy? This one guy who did this book? The next one, The Pilgrims. For daring to defy King James and cross the stormy sea, for working, starving, building homes in a savage, cold country. Yeah, I don't think this is like the world's like best poetry, but there it is. There's some poetry. So I think this is a good concept. You're combining poetry with drawings. It's not a bad idea. Probably the guy sold like millions of copies of this. Let's just go back and see. Did he? American history in verse. Let's add the South. What's this guy's name? Southworth. Let's add Southworth's name and find out if this guy who made this book sold 1 million copies of it. I would imagine every school teacher in the country wanted to buy it. So the fact that there's so many pictures of it means this book is out there. You could borrow it. They got their own like website. No, that's just an Amazon page. I'm not seeing Wikipedia. Let's add that. Is Wikipedia still the top result? There was a time when it was like you would run a search and like the first thing it did was search Wikipedia. It doesn't seem like it. Yeah, it doesn't have a Wikipedia page so far. Yeah, it's going to Amazon. I have a feeling that there was a lot of copies of this sold just because when you take off the wiki and you just run that search and then you go to images, there's so many images. Actually, it's not that many. I'm just willing to bet there were a lot of copies sold. I can't really prove it, but I think so. All right, we have to read this. Wait a second. How come this one doesn't have a title? Squanto warned of their coming. What's going on here? Pilgrims and Indians? What? So what is this, like Shakespeare? 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. The Pilgrim and Indians is 4 pages. That's crazy. And so there's dates here for Columbus, 1451 to 1506. Did Columbus die at 55 years old? 1492. Did he sail to America at 41? That seems about right. So the Pilgrims, though, is like 4 pages long. They're not full pages. And then that says 1620. So is that like when the Mayflower landed? Like, why 1620? I'm not sure. All right, John Harvard, 1607 to 1638. So he was only 31 years old when he died and left those books to the school. I think, let's again go back to our web page and search John Harvard and see if those are indeed his dates. So I'm a little bit impressed. He was only 31 years old and he had, a library of books. Did he get them from his father or his family? 1607. He's not even an American. He's from London, but he dies in Boston in 1638. Okay, so this John Harvard, he only lived to 31. He changed countries and he left a bunch of books to Harvard, I guess. Is it the same John Harvard or is it a different one? We don't even know. When to our wilderness you came in 1637. So he was only here 1 year before he died. You found that Massachusetts Bay was not a bit like heaven. So Boston, Massachusetts, it is sounding like the John Harvard. The woods were thick, the buildings few, to what would be our nation. Some farms there were, some churches too, but little education. It's definitely leaning towards Harvard. So Harvard was founded 150 plus years before the country. It looks like maybe 200 years. And yet in Cambridge, certain men of vision, skill, and knowledge were trying to implant a school that might become a college. You saw, approved, and in your will to help them educate, you left them every book you owned and half of your estate. That was nice of him. Next year, you died at 31. Your relatives all grieved. The educators hailed with joy the gift they had received. The passing centuries have seen far greater gifts, it's true, but none that's won the same acclaim. They named the school for you. Does anyone else think as soon as they put them in the will, they wanted those books and then they felt guilty and they named the name, named the college after them? I don't know. I mean, built them a statue. Anyway. Many wealthy Harvard men would give their gold in mounds for what you got for certain books and £780. £780? I assume that's not a lot. So they named Harvard after John Harvard. All right, there's a note here. Let's see this note. It could be important. This poem contains a flagrant example of poetic license. John Harvard's cash bequest was not £780, but £779, 17 shillings, 2 pence. That doesn't seem like much of a license. He rounded up 79.22 to 80. That seems fine. The author is happy to announce that he has lately sent to Harvard University the princely sum of 29 cents to be credited to the request of the revered. Wait, does that say reverend? Because there's no mention of this guy being a reverend. Is that supposed to say revered? Reverend John Harvard, thus squaring the account and preserving the meter. Did they really do a footnote over 29 cents? I mean, what am I missing here? And was this guy a reverend or not? Just going back to his Wikipedia. John Harvard was an English dissenting minister in colonial America. On his deathbed request, the school or college founded 2 years earlier by Massachusetts Bay was gratefully received. All right, so they didn't even know how to spell like school or college. Like this guy who Harvard is named after couldn't spell college or school. I mean, they put it in quotes there. I assume it's because that's how it was written in his will, and the guy had no... I'm thinking, now, he's a minister, so he was apparently a minister, so he was a reverend. He had, like, a number of books, I guess. I'm not really sure how many books. I think I heard it was an encyclopedia, and now I'm wondering if someone gifted that to him, because he only had 780 pounds. Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into this story. Probably everybody who went to Harvard already knows the answer. You know, honestly, I just have nothing to do with Harvard. They have like, they're so like woke and stuff. Like even my son, my youngest son has like 104 average in school, and he goes to a top high school, and he's a top athlete. He like, for example, won the discus at the varsity island championships. There's like 350K people on the island, and he won the varsity discus championship as a sophomore. He's got the 104 average. He's a good kid. He's great with technology, a lot of other stuff he's smart about. He got the chem first honors this year. He got the bio first honors last year. He also got the not valedictorian, but general excellence last year. Basically, he's a very good kid, and he's being recruited by a lot of these top colleges, and he doesn't want to go to them because he heard how woke they are. And I remember, like, that's exactly how I felt like 35 years ago, because I got like top scores on all SATs and things like that. But I didn't want to go to those colleges because I heard how woke they are. Like back then, like 35 years ago, before anyone knew what woke meant. But now I'm thinking, because the mainstream media created this like idea that these top colleges are horrible, it's basically preventing smart kids from going them, and it's reinforcing them, and they're becoming more and more horrible each year because nobody wants anything to do with them. Like, you would think like, oh, Harvard, you should go to Harvard. But then you think, oh man, they're going to try to like teach you the absolute worst stuff. Like, stay away. It's tough, right? Like, why have the top colleges all been taken over by the woke mind virus? Or are we being misled? Like, maybe when you go there, it's fine. And I'll tell you, it might be. Because like at my company, like half the people are from Harvard. And they have these meetings, and they always talk about the most woke stuff in these meetings. But then in the everyday exchanges of the company, no one ever does any of that stuff. Like, it's just like, it's almost like they think they're supposed to be woke, but like nobody really thinks like that. But I think someone needs to say, like, this is all bullshit. Stop repeating it. Everyone just say what you want to say. Stop pretending that woke is good. I'm saying woke, but before that it was political correctness, and before that it was something else. There's always some reason that everyone makes you feel guilty. There actually was a time, like when I was growing up, Christianity was more popular. Like nowadays, like everyone, I'm Christian, but nowadays so many people in institutions and online, they like hate Christians, the mainstream media and stuff. They're always saying horrible things. But here's the thing. There was a time when Christianity was more popular. And when it was more popular, it got whoever those people are, those same people who like guilt trip everyone over woke, that same like type of person used to be there used to be Christians who used to guilt trip everybody about everything. And frankly, I'm kind of glad that those people left and became woke. I mean, of course, it took a lot of people out of the churches and a lot of money out of the coffers, but it made it like when you involved in Christianity and when you go to church, you're involved in some like pure form of Christianity. Like when it was taken over by the people who wanted to run the world, like I think kind of like it was annoying. I hate to say that. Like, so now that the people who want to run the world are like wokesters, like let them be what they are. What I think shouldn't happen though is that Harvard shouldn't pretend that they're part of them if they're not. And if they are part of them, then yeah, nobody wants anything to do with them. But if they're not part of them, then have the courage to say, we're not part of this. We're just a school. We're just here to teach people bio and chem and whatever they want to learn. And that woke stuff has nothing to... We're not for or against it. I guess technically we're against it if it requires us doing something like putting pronouns in our email or whatever. But anyway, we can't get stuck on that one topic. So Mother Goose. Now, as I understand, Mother Goose was just someone who made some nursery rhymes. So I guess this is a picture. There's a mother and there's a goose. And there's some kids listening to nursery rhymes. It's only 2 kids. Is it like just her kids? Did she make these nursery rhymes just for her kids? I don't know. I wish we had time to read all these poems. But we can't. We're like way behind. William Dawes Samuel Prescott. Who are these motherfuckers? Excuse me. Who are these scholarly gentlemen? I mean, one of them seems to be a donkey. I don't know if that's Prescott or Dawes. They look like American revolutionary in their clothing. Honestly, the pencil work is not as good in this one. I don't think it's as good. Are these all done by the same person? What does that say there? Can't make that out. I don't see that same autograph on the previous one. I don't know. It just doesn't like. It's not inspiring, this picture, for whatever reason. Maybe the scenery, maybe the focal. I don't know. It's just like not good. Is it indoor or outdoor? What's behind this guy? Is it a barn? Is it a fence? Is it woods? Is that the moon? Is that a lantern? I'm not enjoying this picture. Look at these guy's eyes. He looks like a raccoon. Maybe it's bad lighting. All right, we're going to have to read this poem. Otherwise, we're not going to know who the hell is Prescott and the other guy are. I think he's like plays for Dallas, no? 3 men rode through the moonlight clear with hoofbeats madly drumming. Cried Prescott Dawes and Paul Revere. The regulars are coming. Oh, Paul Revere, the Midnight Ride? So, what does this have to do with Dawes and Prescott? Both Dawes and Prescott reached their goal and spread the word of warning. Revere was caught by a patrol and held until the morning. Oh, so Paul Revere got arrested? I don't even know about that. All 3 deserved the hero's name. It was most unexpected that only one lived on in fame. The others were neglected. Oh, my goodness. So there were 2 other guys on the Midnight Ride, Dawes and Prescott. But Revere became famous. And even though this guy wrote a book, like saying there's 2 other guys, you would think that my school teachers would have mentioned them, but I guess we still all remember Paul Revere. Why such injustice? What's the cause? Just think and you will know it. What rhymes with Prescott or with Dawes that would attract a poet? Revere had his story told. It's frequently recited. Now to the light we must uphold the 2 who have been slighted. So, is there a poem about Paul Revere, and what does Revere rhyme with? So I guess Prescott and Dawes were like tougher to rhyme. But Revere also got arrested, so that's something. All right, so 3 guys went on the Midnight Ride. All right. Okay. Dawes and Prescott got it. Yes, they're great. You know what? Paul Revere's not on any currency either, so okay, I guess he's famous. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. Like fame, it's like I know that some people say like, well, this guy acted in a movie and everybody knows him, or this guy played basketball and everybody knows him. But at the bottom line is everyone's famous for being famous. Like you might have done or not done something in the beginning Like, you may or may not have like a claim to fame, but at some point you're just famous for being famous. So like Paul Revere, he's famous because probably somebody wrote something about him and other people referenced it, and then everyone who wanted to get, say, the Midnight Ride would say Paul Revere. That's another thing. Like, you know how your dog knows its name, or your cat, and you know how you might watch some videos online where someone has 20 dogs and all the dogs know all the other dogs' names, and they know. Basically, that's how it works. At a mammalian level, names are powerful things. The people in our life, they're memorable beyond what you might want to think they should be. There's like something innate in our brains that makes us remember people. And therefore, you can tie a person to an event. I think Neil Armstrong on the moon. This is kind of looks like what they're going for here. Or even if you want to talk about American Indians, which is a whole nation of people, First Nation, you put one of them there because you put a face to the movement. There was, wasn't there, like some people, you might hear people, I don't want to seem like I'm pro or anti on this one, but I'm just talking sociologically. You might see people say, why is George Floyd revered? They're like, wasn't he arrested so many times? Wasn't he on drugs? Didn't he like do this and that bad thing? You know, like, why are you making a hero out of him? That's just how human brains work. There's like a person and they're associated with a movement. Even like Trump, for example. Like, I don't think Trump's the most trustworthy guy in the world, but he's representing like the common man, the people. He's representing the common man, the person who wants to put America first. The people, somehow he got to claim like Second Amendment, you know, which is like, I've never seen any video of Trump with a gun. Somehow he got to represent Christians. Is Trump like known for being a Christian? Like somehow some like amazing political work for a guy who never worked in politics. He somehow represents like American manufacturing workers. He represents Americans who believe in the Constitution. He represents the Americans who think that the government's not doing a good job. How did he get that one? How did the Democrats give up that turf? The whole time that I was living, I used to hate. I remember there was a time when I used to get upset about how much Democrats complained about the government. But it's like, as soon as they took control of the government, whenever that was in like the 90s, they suddenly stopped complaining about the government. And now at this point, they're like cheerleaders for the government. I mean, could you pick a more obnoxious position? I know that people think like, oh, the Democrats didn't steal the election. They won fair and square. Some people think that. Fine. Think whatever you want. But in the abstract, do you think the most popular position is the people who cheerlead the government? I mean, in this day and age where there's riots in every city and there's like nobody's happy and everyone's like houses are getting smaller every year. Like eggs and bananas are getting like more expensive every week. And it's like there seems to be general unhappiness. Do you think this is the time when there would be 81 million votes for the movement that wants to keep the status quo? Or do you think there would be more votes for the movement who like, something's fucked and it needs to be fixed? Because Trump, think about Trump's reputation over the last 50 years. The guy was like, were you a fan of Trump? Because I wasn't. To me, he was like the most, what's the word? What's the word for opposite of based? He was like the most fucking stand up for the stupidest shit. Like his whole like life. I mean, maybe he had a change of pace at some point. They say, look at the fruits. I mean, his kids seem to be marvelous, but Trump was like, for so long, he was like for everything that you didn't respect. He was like, first of all, he collects rent for a living. He brags about being a billionaire. He's on the Howard Stern show, and he's always talking about women in like what's the word? Just disrespectful manner. It's like this guy who was the furthest thing from any American working class person and bragged about it for 50 years suddenly came to represent the movement. Like that's just how human brains work. I doubt it was coincidence. It probably was some really slick marketing, but he somehow grabbed the mantle of all these things that Americans love, and now it's like he's the thing that represents them. And it's amazing. Let's just hope that he was an actor hired by those. Like Trump claims to be against the deep state. I'm actually hoping that he was an actor hired by the deep state, or at least the military, because if you're telling me that this guy who was like the world's biggest jackass for 50 years is now our only hope for like saving the country, I don't know. I don't know if that's where we want to, pile our chips behind, but let's see. I'll say that he's better than the alternative, but only because the alternative is like bragging about how incompetent and horrible they are. so I don't like either party. Is that how's that sound? Who would you vote for? I guess in that situation I would vote for Trump, but it's not like I think there's anything good about him. It's just that he's come to represent everything that is good. But the problem is that's a real person that you're going to put in that job, and he could then do whatever the hell he wants. So that job is George Washington's job. I think Megyn Kelly said that in one of the debates. She said, you're applying for George Washington's job and whatever. We're going to ask you some questions. And then she asked Trump about bleeding from wherever or something like that. And by the way, I think she's currently pro-Trump, and so is Carlson. So that's a weird thing. So this internal conflict that I'm having, like, we all know this guy's a jackass. Why are we supporting him? I mean, Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson are struggling with the same thing. And it's kind of like you would say, why did this media people who love Trump for 50 years hate him now? It's because they don't hate Trump. It's because they hate us. And like, why would Megyn and Tucker support Trump when neither of them supported him in 2016? Because Trump represents us and they support us. So you see how it works? People become like icons. Like people, like flesh and blood people can become icons for movements. And when I say icons, I mean literally like Windows 95, double click on the icon to open the application. That type of icon. Like people see George Washington and it's like founding of the United States. People see Donald Trump and it's like dismantling of the deep state. The guy somehow ended up representing something good. Representing the thing that's like furthest from what his previous 50 years of history indicated he would represent. But somehow it happened. All right, so Betsy Ross. So there's the flag. Southern Poverty Law Center. If you put this flag on your car or on your locker or on your property, they're going to call you a racist. It's a really complicated argument as to why the Betsy Ross flag would be racist, but, that's what they say. We can read this poem just because it's short, although I'm kind of losing my voice. We might have to start speeding up. I'm not sure why. Oh, Betsy Ross of Quakertown, is the old story true? Did you sew stripes of red and white and 13 stars on blue? Was our first flag the product of your needle, thread, and you? Historians who deal in facts seem anxious to be rid of all the tales that can't be proved. Your story they forbid, but as for me, I much prefer to think you really did. All right, so I guess there was some controversy as to whether or not Betsy Ross even did make this flag. That's interesting. So in 1976, and I guess the years before, the Betsy Ross flag was already controversial. So I guess it's like always a powder keg. The signer's declaration, you can tell by the date. Look at all these notes. I'm not going to read it. I think we're just going to look for pictures at this point. Patrick Henry. Who is Patrick Henry? Was that the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death guy? Let's read his too and see if it has that line. Cromwell. They had a Cromwell Center on Staten Island for many years. Oh, this is too long a poem. Let's just scan it for the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. Anyway, the Cromwell Center had an indoor track, but it was like horrible indoor track. Now Staten Island has Ocean Breeze, which is a world-class facility, so we upgraded there. All right, let's see. Cries of treason, Cromwell, taxation. I think this is going to have the line, give me liberty or give me death. I don't know why he would want death. I guess he wanted liberty and he challenged them. You wouldn't challenge the sort of... Does it seem like the world has gotten less of a moral compass? Like back then, he said, give me liberty or give me death. And you felt like people would be like, well, the guy's putting his life on the line. Maybe we should look into it. I feel like it wouldn't exist on nobody would be impressed these days. Like there's people burn themselves in protest. I remember when Uber was flaunting all the rights of, we'd built 100 years of taxi laws, and then Uber just said, oh, we're not a taxi, we're ride sharers, and we're going to break all the laws. And it destroyed the lives of taxi drivers, and they were is it called immolating themselves when they burn themselves? Anyway, taxi drivers were burning themselves to get people to look at this issue, and nobody looked at it. Nobody gave a shit. So Patrick Henry, am I even quoting the right guy? Let's just run a search to see who said give me liberty or give me death. So Patrick Henry made a statement, and it impressed people. Nowadays, you can't even impress people if you actually go through with it. Yeah, we live in some hard times. I know you would think but everybody's so soft nowadays. These aren't hard times. These are soft times. Actually, soft people create hard times. You get harder, stronger people would create more comfortable times. The softer people, they create the hard times because they have no, backbone. So, and when there's no backbone, that's when the evil thrives. When the leaders have no backbone, the evil runs wild. All right, so Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death. Book by Patrick Henry. An American History. Okay, book by Patrick Henry? No, I want the quote. Anyway, let's click on it. Give me liberty or give me death. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? Well, that they would have life. Whatever. So Patrick Henry did have that quote. I don't know if he's the only one in the world who ever said it, but he said it. Apparently named his book. All right, Thomas Paine. Don't remember off the top of my head who Thomas Paine is. I know he's another American patriot type of person. He's not the author, Thomas Paine, is he? All right, from England came poor Thomas Paine to serve a cause in which he could see was fraught with hopelessness, our struggle to be free. His keen, incisive mind and pen revealed the very thing that split America in two, our war against a king. To whom we still pledged loyalty, he authored common sense. His logic was so clear and sharp, we climbed down from the fence. Our independence we declared, then when the war seemed lost, Paine wrote the crisis, urging men to fight, nor count the costs. I think I read something wrong there. Either that or that poem makes no sense. Oh, the poem is still going on. All right, so Patrick Henry wanted people to fight. Probably another thing on the SPLC's list. Mad Anthony Wayne. I don't know who this is. Were you really insane, Mad Anthony Wayne, when you tried what no other would try? Was it daring and pluck or crazy luck that you led to win, not to die? So, Mad Anthony Wayne, sounds like there's a story there we'll have to look into. Mad Anthony Wayne. All right, let's just run one more search. I mean, that just sounds too good. Who is this Mad Anthony Wayne? Mad Anthony Wayne. Let's see what we can get from this guy. Why can't we get it from the poem? Why do I have to run like a separate Google search? Like, we've gotten better at like, I mean, I'll give Google credit. They're good at like finding that like one sentence that says something and putting it at the top of the search results. Anthony Wayne was an American soldier, officer, statesman, and one of the founding fathers of the U.S. Why was he called Mad Anthony? Sounds like he led some light brigade and they won or something like that. Yeah, there's the thing I expected to see under Google. The nickname Mad Anthony came about when a disobedient spy used by Wayne was outraged that his commander refused to lift the punishment of 29 lashes for his disorderly conduct and desertion, and muttered, "Anthony is mad. He must be mad or he would not help me." All right, this is not, or he would help me. This does not match the poem, so there must be something else that he's famous for. Anthony Wayne served as an officer in the Continental Army during the American Revolution. His military exploits earned him the nickname Mad Anthony. During the Revolution, Wayne played an important role in the 1777 campaign, the Battle of Monmouth, and the Southern Campaign. All right, so if we went to Monmouth University, we'd probably see some stuff on Mad Anthony Wayne. I'm pretty close near there. In fact, my parents live an hour away, and probably Monmouth is halfway between the two of us. So I don't know why we don't know that, but Google doesn't know it either, because they gave two different answers for why he's called Mad Anthony Wayne, and neither one of them mentioned this sort of this like poem doesn't seem to match. There's actually several questions here. I'll just read you a couple of them. What happened to Anthony Wayne after the Revolutionary War? Is Wayne, New Jersey, named after Anthony Wayne? It seems like there's a lot there. We got to look into that Anthony Wayne. Daniel Boone. But that's not one of the guys at the Alamo, was it? I might have just embarrassed myself by mentioning that. I'm just looking through. I'm just scanning the poetry here to get some clues. We don't have time. We're already over. Well, we're at 58 minutes. We're going to be in an hour soon. All right, Alexander Hamilton. This seems again like a different artist, just based on the signature, but also the style. What is going on with those fingers? All right. There are 5 of them, but do those look like human fingers to you? These fingers aren't any better. This is an artist that did not excel at fingers. All right, Hamilton. I'm not going to go into Hamilton. There was a whole play. You can just watch that. It's on. I forget when it's on. It might be on HBO. I forget exactly where it is, but you can watch it. John Paul Jones, naval commander. Was he a British naval commander or an American? I guess American if he's in this book. Revolution. I just read the word revolution from this, from the verse. I'll tell you, the drawing is, I don't know if abstract is the word. I think it's kind of like, what was the word for that? The Dali paintings, like Salvador Dali. They would call them I forget the word. But it was like they were crazy. And this kind of looks like that. Like some kind of like dreamish thing. Like this doesn't look like a rational drawing. Why can't I remember the name? Now I have to look that up too. Dali art style. What was the name of the Dali art style? Salvador Dali. No, it was a Spanish surrealist. Surrealism. Yeah. Does it look like kind of surrealist? I don't know. Looks a little crazy to me. Maybe not exactly Dali, but... Alright, Molly Pitcher. She's carrying some pictures on a battlefield. It seems pretty clear. Benedict Arnold, the trader. We're running out of time. I'm going a little faster. My voice is giving way. James Madison. Eli Whitney. Okay. I have to read Eli Whitney. Because of... for no other sake than at my company's sake. All right. When you went to Georgia... I can't read. My voice is gone. When you went to Georgia, a boy fresh from Yale, you hiked through farmlands across the hill and dale. You had never seen cotton, a crop in the fields. With such plantings, you wondered, why not bigger yields? The reason they told you arose from the need of cleaning the fibers of every last seed, a slow job and painful performed by hands of numerous workers in hard-working bands. You designed a machine for freeing the cotton. The design wasn't good. The performance was rotten. Defeated, despondent, you went out and sat by the chicken yard fence and saw there a cat. So Eli Whitney and the invention of the cotton gin. All right, it goes on. He'd inserted his paw through a hole in the fence. He sat there and waited, excited and tense. A chicken wandered close. The cat's claws were quick. They snatched out some feathers. The fence saved the chick. Right there was your answer. You rushed to begin to build your new engine, the first cotton gin. It worked to perfection by cleaning more cotton than dozens of workers had hitherto gotten. You made the South prosper by raising the yield of the great cash crop, cotton brought fresh from the field. Today we still marvel at what you could do, our two great inventors, the Tomcat and you. It wasn't bad. The Whiskey Rebellion. We got to read this one too, because I don't even know what the Whiskey Rebellion is. I probably should know. All right. The Whiskey Rebellion. Sing a song of sixpence, a demijohn of corn. Hamilton will tax it, sure as you are born. When the tax was ordered, the farmers booed and hissed, feathering the taxmen, swearing to resist. Have your fun, O farmers, utter yells and whoops. Hamilton is coming, leading in the troops. Sing a song of billions, patterned for the nation. Anything with profits brings us new taxation. Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know. I still don't know what it's about, but I think that's pretty accurate. All right, here's a guy drawing a stork. John James Audubon. Oh, is the Audubon Society people who watch birds? Yeah, I think my boss at work is in that. I remember he used to say he went bird watching, and at first I thought that was definitely like code for something. But turns out he actually just watches birds. I guess that's fun to some people. Aaron Burr. Andrew Jackson. Seems like they were better at naming people back then. All the good names are like taken. Like, I mean, You could call your kid like Aaron Burr or Andrew Jackson, but people will be like, those, why are you naming them after Aaron Burr and Andrew Jackson? It's like they just took them. Those names are just taken. It's like, I guess you could name your kid Andrew Jackson, but it's like kind of already taken. Francis Scott Key. All right, you got some interesting artwork here. The water is a little stale, but I get the point here. Looks a little calm, though. I mean, he's dressed a little fancy. I thought he was like hiding from the bombs the way my dog hides on the 4th of July, but apparently, according to this painting, he was just like casually watching them explode. I'm sure this is a good one that we're not going to get into right now. Buy the book if you want to read the whole thing. All right, Henry Clay, Stephen Foster, Stephen Douglas, Ulysses S. Grant, and Robert E. Lee. I'm sure there's some really important verses here. I just don't have time right now. Maybe some other time. Actually not. As soon as this stream ends, I'm going to add this book to the donate pile. So I guess before we donate it, let's read about Abraham Lincoln. This is clearly a movie poster. This artwork here did they sometimes do that? Did art that looks like movie posters exist before the movie posters? All right, because this definitely looks like Shaq from Uncle Drew. All right, so Abraham Lincoln. Let's see what that's all about. Your unexpected climb to fame in life was hindered by adversity and woes. A man of peace, you had to deal with strife. As countrymen and friends became fierce foes, with little education in your youth, you had to deal with problems deep and vast. A homely, awkward man, some called uncouth, you handled tasks undreamed of in the past, to win a war to free the slaves, to knit a riven country back to one again. You had it almost done when you were hit. Booth's heavy bullet put you out of pain. We know today the things that made you great, your mind, your soul, your heart devoid of hate. Well, the movie poster is pretty good. It's missing the top hat, but I guess that would have obstructed the view of everything else. This poem, it says it's a sonnet. I don't know what sonnets are, but that poem was terrible. There was no like structure to it. It wasn't interesting. Wow, that was like horrible. That poem was bad. All right, the Gunslingers, Street Incident. All right, Street Incident. All right, we have to see what this is. Okay. One day on the street, a young black man appeared, back bowed, bearing 2 heavy bags. With the greatest of effort, he struggled along through a series of tugs, lifts, and drags. In time, he encountered another young man, a husky, athletic white boy. Here, friend, let me help you, the newcomer said. The black man accepted with joy. As the two walked together, they chatted a bit. In the midst of their heavy load hiking, each found in the other genuine worth. They developed a mutual liking. It's hard at the outset to look far ahead and see how an epistle ends. Neither boy could have told, as they struggled along, that they would become lasting friends. You have helped me a lot, the colored boy said. Such a help from a stranger is fine. Booker T. Washington, that is my name, and Theodore Roosevelt is mine. Well, so the street incident is that Theodore Roosevelt helped Booker T. Washington carry some bags. Okay. So that's the street incident. So I found this poem a little awkward, and I think that if it was a visual, it would be fine. Everyone would get the point. Like, they would see the two people, and they would be glad that they worked together. I think that's one of the nice things about sports is People are just like, this guy throws the ball best, this guy catches the ball best, this guy is good at like shooting a soccer ball or swinging a hockey stick, and it's like everyone's rated based on their skill, and everyone could see that. Like nobody's really like second guessing that Tom Brady's not a good quarterback, because really you should be second guessing because he looks like he was cast for that position. But I mean, he clearly also can play the game. So, you know, maybe some of it is when you look the part, you look in the mirror and you just believe you can do it, and therefore you become better at it. You know, maybe it's like internal. You know how they talk about that? What do they call that? That like they say it's racism when you don't mean to be racist. It's like what is that called? Like inherent or something like that. It's like implicit or bias or something. It's basically like when you're doing something wrong, but you didn't mean to. It's just like it's just in your thinking somehow. So like maybe that's it. Like maybe Tom Brady looks in the mirror and thinks like, yeah, I should be a great quarterback. And therefore he then spends the rest of the day playing, you know, acting like doing what a great quarterback would do, like studying film and working on his passing, or, you know, reading defenses or whatever he needs to do, you know. I mean, you can have internal, you know, people have beliefs about themselves, you know. You can have beliefs negative or positive about someone else. You could have beliefs negative or positive about yourself, and it could affect your life. Let that be a lesson. See yourself as whatever you want to be, and then you'll start acting like that, and act like that for long enough, and you'll probably be successful at it. Also, there's coaches, and coaches probably hire guys sometimes who look like the part. You know, I mean, it's great to be a great quarterback, but how many people have never, like, you know, how many people have never gotten the chance to play quarterback? Maybe they would be great at it. That happened to me in soccer a couple of times, being put in goal. It's like, I could really go into a conspiracy theory on that. I feel like, I think I told the story before. I played goalie one day at Chelsea Piers, and we were like in the soccer over 30 men's league, and we were down a man, and I wasn't a goalie, but I ended up getting a standing ovation at the end because I stopped everything. And I don't know if you've ever seen indoor soccer. It's kind of like hockey. It's that fast paced. There's that many shots on goal, if not more. There probably are more. So I probably made like 50 or 100 saves, and many of them were remarkable. And I don't know if it was just like coincidence or it was some sort of hazing ritual, but it was definitely one of those lemonade out of lemon situations. I basically stopped everything. And like, who knew I could play goalie? And then after that, I'm thinking like, well, it's an over 30 men's league, so I'm not going to start a new career as a soccer goalie. But I thought like, well, maybe if I tried that earlier, I would have been good at it. All right, Henry Ford. So he created the assembly line. I guess that's the Model T Ford there. It doesn't really look like it, though. It might be like in partial assembly. I think up here it looks more like a completed Model T Ford. So this is something between abstract and a movie painting. Do we have time to read one more poem? It looks so good. It's got all these quotes. Let's see how long it is. Okay, it's only one page. All right, let's read one more. Henry Ford. Putt, a putt, a putt-putt. The shop is full of smoke. Henry's in there working. That's a joke. Putt, a putt-putt. What's a fool he's been, fitting up a carriage with a gas machine. A putt. Better get a horse. If he starts out riding, he'll walk back, of course. Putt. See the carriage run, scooting down the hallway. Say, that looks like fun. Put a purr. Gee, how smooth that feels. Henry the mechanic put us all on wheels. All right, I did a terrible job of doing the vocalizations of smoke puttering and then an engine purring. Sorry. I wish I'd done better. Maybe I'll reread that poem one day as a YouTube short. That wasn't a bad one. The Wright brothers. All right, so I can do an hour on the Wright brothers. I'm not going to do it today. Let's do it some other time. Let's just say go to, when is it, like 1911 or something like that? When was their first flight? That Kitty Hawk, whatever. I don't see the year in this poem. I think it was the fact that it mentions 1911 in the next page. And I could go to Google and look it up. But here's the thing. Whatever year their flight was in, go back and read newspaper and magazine articles in the century leading up to the Wright brothers' flight, and you will find many other first flights. They were not the first flight. There were many of them. Carrie Nation, the suffragettes. What is going on here? Oh, P.T. Barnum. All right, so he's got Jumbo the elephant and some tiny horse. It's like the tiniest horse, right? Like on The Office. Well, not The Office. What was the name of that show? Anyway, it had the lady from Saturday Night Live, Amy Poehler, and Chris Pratt. And there was a tiny horse. That was like, he had a name, but I can't remember it. Little Sebastian, was that his name? Something like that. Man of Contradictions, Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, I had like a great uncle who worked for Theodore Roosevelt. It's a long story. It's like a famous family story. He died jumping over cars when he was 80 years old. My great uncle, but trying to win money in bets. But the fact that he did that, was even trying at 80 years old. I mean, obviously it was stupid. He died. It happened. Oh, there's such a sad story in my neighborhood. This kid was like subway surfing and he died. And all the kids from his school, they like, the first day they were all at the train station, like with candles and balloons and flowers. And then the next day there was like half the kids. And then the third day there was like a dozen kids. And then they left after an hour. And I was thinking like, it was just so sad. It was like, first of all, that a teenager died in such a senseless way was already sad. But then the fact that, people can only give so much attention. It's like at some point they move on. And of course they should move on because they have their lives to live. But it just makes the death even more pointless. Like for people out there who end their life because they think they're making a statement, you should be aware of how quickly everyone's going to forget. Your life, there's no statement that's worth your life. Now, if you're in a war and fighting tooth and nail for survival, that could be different. But if you're trying to make a political statement or some local statement to impress a single person, don't do it. Nobody's going to be oppressed, and they're going to forget very quickly. It happens. I knew when I was a kid, I knew someone that accidentally ended their life. Well, of course, the subway surfer also was accidental, but the person was trying to make a statement, and I won't even mention what they did. And they meant for the statement to be dramatic. They didn't mean for it to be life-ending, so that was a horrible way to go. It wasn't someone I knew. It was like someone I knew secondhand. It was a friend of a friend, but it was a horrible story to hear. All right, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Wow, this author of this book was obsessed with these Roosevelts. We got Teddy and FDR in the book. It's quite a professional drawing he got. It's like, look at this drawing. It's like quality. I'm not saying quality in the good way, because sometimes a drawing can be very rough and it captures the essence and makes it memorable, and then other times the drawing can be very professionally done, but it's not really memorable. And I think that's what we have here. For example, someone gave some notes that like you need to include Hitler. Like, I assume this is Hitler. But, the notes were probably like, that's not obvious that it's Hitler. So then they added this little Hitler poster. So, like, I don't know who this is, but this guy got like top billing. Is that like FDR when he still could walk? He doesn't really look like him, but maybe that's what he looked like when he was younger. This war scene looks great. This hospital scene looks great, but it's not a type of painting that anyone would remember. So, like, as well as this is drawn, I don't think this is gonna tug at anyone's heartstrings or linger in anyone's brain. But it's done well. I mean, someone put a lot of effort into drawing that soldier and drawing this guy here. All right, Patrick Buck, neighborhood hero. So it's World War I, 1917. I'm not going to read it, but I'll take their word for it, that Patrick Buck is a neighborhood hero. How many pages do we have left in this thing? Charles Augustus Lindbergh. That's famous story. The Lindbergh baby was this baby of the Lindberghs that was like kidnapped. It was a terrible thing, the Lindbergh baby. Presidential jinx. This could be horrible to read, but we're going to read it anyway. First, let's look at the pictures. So we've got obviously JFK in the middle, LBJ there, Jackie O. This seems to be all Kennedys. I think maybe it's a Kennedy jinx, not a presidential jinx. I've heard about a presidential jinx with the every 20-year president being either assassinated or attempted assassination. That would be a presidential jinx, or maybe some sort of ritual. But anyway, this jinx, based on the artwork, is all about Kennedy, which makes me less want to read it. Here's something interesting. The assassination scene looks like the Obama logo. Do you remember that Obama logo when he was like running in 2008? Well, look at this artwork here. It's like, it has the same framing. Let me see if I can find that logo. So let's do the Obama 2016 logo. Oh, Obama 2016 logo. Let's see here. Yeah, that's it. So there's the Obama logo. I don't know, maybe it doesn't look that much like it, but it was the first thing I thought of when I saw it. Oh, this is funny. Do you get that one on the right? I mean, I think it's Trump. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the one on the right is a reference to Trump. Let's look at some other logos. Oh, that famous Hillary logo that looks like the Hillary logo, the H with the arrow. It like looks like 9/11. Like, who came up with that logo? Was she Romney? That's too much. That guy's a little like self-accept. Anyway, Obama 2008. So that's the logo I was thinking of, the Obama 2008 logo. Maybe it doesn't look that much like it. I don't know why it came into my head. Maybe because they're both presidents. Anyway, there's a circle here. There's curvy patterns going that way. And then there's a car. So the car is definitely missing from the Obama logo. Anyway, I'm not going to read it just because... Oh, no, it is. It is the 20-year thing. Look, 1960, 1840, 1860. Okay, we have to read this. It is the presidential jinx. Even though the drawing is all about Kennedy, it is about the jinx. The president, each 20 years, goes early to his bier. 6 presidents the jinx has claimed. Now 1960s here. In 1840s, Harrison, 1 out, and Tyler 2. Within a month, he sickened, and quite quickly he was through. In 1860, Honest Abe prevailed, then won again. Booth's pistol bullet robbed us of one of the greatest men. In 1880, Garfield won. A dark horse choice was he. He turned an officer seeker down. A bullet was his fee. McKinley won in '08. He'd had one term before. A pistol-wielding anarchist made sure he'd run no more. Yeah, so that's horrible. That's the, I guess they're calling it presidential jinx. It's just this idea that every president on the 20s has some assassination. For example, Reagan. So 1960 was Kennedy, and obviously he was shot. And then 1980 was Reagan, and he was shot in the chest, but he survived. So, oh, okay, this is still going on. There's more here. In 20, it was Warren G. who won the deadly prize. He sickened on a Western trip and met a quick demise. In 1940, FDR, a third election tried. He won again in 44, then very quickly died. Oh, that one isn't even fit. He won in 44, but they're like crediting him because he was president in 40. That doesn't really work. The president each 20 years goes early to his buyer. 6 presidents the jinx has claimed. Now 1960s here. Well, if they'd written that before, I guess it would be something, but seems like it was written after, so I'm going to choose not to be impressed with that one. Wow, this close-up cam doesn't work, huh? All right, it totally doesn't work on this text. We're not even going to use it. All right, we're almost done with this book here. There's like nothing left. Let's see what nothing we have left to go. The Unknown Future. If that's the last one, then I'm going to read it because, ooh, The Unknown Future. 76. This came out 3 years after the, wait, when was that? 1969? Okay, so 7 years after. So 7 years after the first moon landing. No, it was in 73, right? When was the moon landing? Was it in 69? Yeah, it was in 69, I think. So this book came out 7 years later. So does this poem... Is this poem a statement about the future, or is it a statement about the future with regards to a past event, which is the moon landing? Anyway, let's read it. Maybe we'll be disappointed, but let's read it, and then we're done with this book. We stand in the present, in hope and in dread. We know what's behind us, but not what's ahead. Our earth has been explored, now we look to the stars. We've walked on the moon, next on Venus and Mars. A marvelous future, it might well be so, but if we aren't wary, most likely it's no. Some unfortunate evils are starting to climb. Must we suffer this upturn of violence and crime? 2 wars to end warfare have lately occurred. No peace was forthcoming. Must there be a third? Has the magic of science been blessing or a hex? Has living improved or just grown more complex? The strife between sexes is showing strong growth. Too bad there's no future for us without both. Yes, it takes 2. There are rivalries grim between nations and races, religions and parties and colors of faces. Man's far from perfection, he quarrels and fights, neglecting his duties, demanding his rights. Cannot men come to see that they're really alike? Can't their hands be extended to aid and not to strike? In this perilous future, who'll save us? Who can? If he puts his mind to it, this creature called man. So I think that poem is as relevant today as it was in 1976. I also wonder about this picture, if the things in here are the previous chapters from the book. I'm not sure they are. I don't recognize a couple of those. Like, is that Nixon? Like, Nixon wasn't in the book. But Nixon, and this is, was that Truman? Anyway, I don't think all these people were in the guillotine, French Revolution. So that's not even America. Why is that here? Oh, that's not a guillotine. Is that Oswald in the book depository? I'm not sure. This is a very controversial image to have in a reflection of this guy's helmet. At first I thought this was a guillotine because of the framing and the light and the head, but it's a full chest, not just a head, and he's looking up. So now I'm thinking maybe it's an open window. I'm not sure who would be in the window. We just recently did the Kennedy thing. There's Lincoln. I'm not sure what's going on with this picture, but I think this poem, it's kind of how people always feel, or at least for the last 130 years when we were dealing with this technological changes. Like, definitely been a lot of tech is definitely a big thing. There was something more I was going to say about this, but I'm not sure. Just that it's relevant. I mean, maybe I had some better thought in my mind, but it is quite relevant. It's as relevant today as it was when it was written. All right, so I guess I had fun looking at this book, Valkyrie Press. Was that a big name in 1976? Or was this like an indie hit? I don't really know. I could definitely see this being an indie hit. Like, I could see a publisher passing on this and then it becoming like a Kickstarter hit. Although they didn't have Kickstarter in 1976. But I could see this, like, the history teachers buying it and showing it to their kids, or someone just wanting it in their house. Honestly, the art's not that good and the poetry is really bad. Maybe the art is really bad too, and I just don't know enough about art. But at the same time, there's something here. There's like, you're not going to regret spending an hour with this book, I think. Especially if you're American history. You're not going to agree with everything in it. But it's thoughtful. You could like discuss this with someone. I don't know at the end of that discussion if you're going to find like an ally or an enemy, but, I guess it's good to know who you're, talking to, no matter how it shakes out. And this book might help you find that out. All right, I hope it was fun for you. If you were listening to fall asleep, I guess I hope you enjoyed your rest. I'm going to say good night, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night. See you tomorrow.